It has been a wild year for weather across Canada. Records for everything from rainfall amounts to temperatures shattered across the country. Joining me for a look at the top weather stories of 2019 is Environment Canada senior climatologist David Phillips. Great to see you.
Thank you, Kelsey.
So we're talking first about the Arctic. We know that
Yes.
temperatures have been extraordinarily hot. What's new about this year?
Well, Kelsey, there's always so many ways you can say, the big heat leads to the big melt. And we saw that. It's a continuation of what we've seen for so many years. We saw in the high Arctic, it was the warmest summer on record, the second warmest year. And of course, we saw the disappearance of the ice at the end of August, early September, when the ice is usually the less extent. This was the second worst in 41 years. In October, they couldn't even grow the ice. But what was different, though, for me, Kelsey, was that we also saw other things in the Arctic that were alarming. We saw weather changes. We saw heat waves in the Alert and Eureka. I mean, places of it warmer than Victoria. We saw a tornado in the Northwest Territories. We saw wildfires north of the Arctic Circle. You could see the smoke from satellites. And we saw lightning and thunder within sight of the North Pole. I mean, it's the climate is changing, but now they're seeing the southern weather too, and that's rather ominous.
It's very alarming.
Yes, it is.
We go from that to cold.
Yes.
That happened in February. We know that February can be very, very cold, but something was different about this year.
It was. The shortest month became the longest month, particularly for Westerners. I mean, from British Columbia to the upper Great Lakes, it was the coldest month in 72 years. I mean, it defined winter. Even though it was a long winter and it wasn't record cold, everybody remembers what February was like. And just unbelievable. I mean, there wasn't a melting temperature on the prairies to be found. And it had lots of impacts. I mean, shelters were filled, of course, as you find in a cold situation. Pipes broke and cracked in record levels. And we broke records for the number of records we broke on the prairies. And every day we broke records for the amount of energy used, only to break it tomorrow and the next day. It was absolutely, it defined winter. Even to this day, Kelsey, when people say, well, what's the winter going to be like? I hope it's not like last February. They do remember it as being totally miserable.
They do, and then that same area had a very rapid return to winter come the following fall in September. Oh,
absolutely. Two major snowfalls. I mean, you've spent time in the West. You know that fall snowfall is not rare. But what we saw a week after summer ended, we saw this monster snowfall in Calgary, 32 centimeters, not record, but the most staying on the ground, even higher, a meter higher in the mountains. And of course, the leaves were still on trees. It brought a lot of power outages and a real hit for farmers and ranchers. I mean, the crops hadn't been harvested and they just sagged under that wet, soppy snow. And then a week before, or a few days before Thanksgiving, came this incredible snowfall to southern Manitoba. And again, power outages. For Manitoba Hydro, never have they seen such a record outage in that. And it wasn't just overnight, a power out. It was for a week that some people, 10 days, that 6,000 people still didn't have power. And it wasn't just lines down. These were huge transmission towers. So really a hit, and again, a big challenge for farmers. There's still millions of acres out in the prairies that haven't been harvested yet because of that snowfall.
We go from the prairies to Atlantic Canada because hurricane season, it's one to remember.
It is. And it was, as you know, it was active. 18 tropical storms. Normally we'd be about 12. We saw about 6 hurricanes kind of touch Canada. I mean, they were often just inconvenience, but not Dorian. Dorian was annihilated in the Bahamas, and it still had energy left for Nova Scotia. And that area knows storms. This took out more public infrastructure than any storm in history, even Hurricane Juan, which books have been written about it. And so it was a big hit, too much rain, too much wind, and was made worse by 10 days before there was Tropical Storm Erin, which kind of wetted things and caused trees to be unstable. And boy, when Dorian arrived, it was a big hit.
Central Canada is dominating the top of the list with the Ottawa River flood.
Absolutely. 2017 was a big flood. This was bigger and worse than 2017. And the same area, the same people taken out of their homes had to be taken out again. I think, Kelsey, it was like the perfect storm for floods. You couldn't have manufactured a better year in terms of you wanted floods, because a lot of snow, the ground was frozen, spring was late to come, and then you got the spring rains, rain on top of frozen ground, and the water had no place to go. And of course, you ended up with the most unprecedented, impactful flood in history.
Dave Phillips, thank you so much for coming in. I know that next year, with these extremes we've been talking about, we'll be having wild stories to cover as well.
That's for sure, for sure.
Okay, take care.
Thank you very much, Kelsey.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.